Hello and welcome to Molby On The Spot. You know who I'm joined by, the legend that is Jan Molby, and this is Trev Downey here in my podcasting hole in my house in beautiful rural Ireland. And I am looking forward to this one, Jan, because we've a lot on the table, stuff sort of breaking as we speak. We'll get to that. We'll let everyone sort of settle themselves and see if it develops a little bit more, but some transfer related stuff on the horizon. A Champions League draw, which has just recently been made, that we'll respond to as well. And we'll get Jan's thoughts on that. But mate, where else would we start? Only with the most recent outing for the Reds. Dramatic, doesn't quite cover it, man. Were you actually at that one live?
I was there, Trevor. And I have to say that a lot of things around that game really was getting on my nerves. You know what I mean? You're like the build-up towards the game where the media is trying to portray this, the Newcastle fans towards the Liverpool fans. And I'm thinking, that's not the Geordies we know. They're disappointed, they're pissed off, aren't they? And we would be the same in it. But I didn't come across any animosity, and I would be amazed if many Liverpool fans did. They were unhappy, and then, of course, they're unhappy losing the game in the last minute. They said, but the people I spoke to, and I left the stadium quite quickly after, and I walked down with a couple of lads, and they were just, listen, they just want it over and done with. They're fed up talking about it. They know he's never going to play for them again. Let's move on. I think one of them said, we'd be more worried about losing Livramento. He's the next one in line. That he said, we're more worried about losing him. Now, we've lost this kid, Isak. He's going to go with a big club, man up and get on with it. That was kind of the feeling I got. In terms of the game, I'm kind of a little bit in Arne Slot's camp. I did commentary and it was dramatic. The commentator said, what a great game. I said, it was a horrible game, wasn't it? It sort of reminded me a little bit of that last game at Goodison Park last year. Not a lot of football played. And I think we played our part. I think the first 4 times we had the ball in the game, we just booted it upfield or booted it out of play. And we were a little bit worried about playing through their midfield because we knew there was a potential of us getting bullied, isn't it? So I thought in many ways it was a strange game. I cannot for my life work out that when we went 2-0 up against 10 men, that we couldn't just settle in their half and pass them to death. I couldn't get my head around that, Trevor. I'm thinking, bang, up we go into their half, spare man, we're going to pass them to death. I just couldn't get my head around the fact that we couldn't do that. And then the goals that they get are what they are, isn't it? And in fairness, I don't think I ever saw the winner coming. When the ball went up with 11 minutes, you thought, Newcastle will probably get more from these 11 minutes than what we will because the momentum was with them. But yeah, football is a wonderful sport.
Yes, one way of putting it, bud. Your particular part of the match that you zoned in, as ever, you're spot on. Someone came up with the stat today. I think it could be my pal Dave on his Daily Red show. Apparently, from somewhere in the 50th minute or so until the end, until the Liverpool goal at the end, we managed to create. Now, I know you're not a big stats man, and God knows of all the stats, XG is my least favorite. But Liverpool managed to create 0.0 XG. In other words, there was zero threat of goal from Liverpool at all in that period. And that really says it all, doesn't it? As you said, we go 2 up, and from the a couple of minutes soon after that happened, we looked like we might sort of nail this one down and get it done and dusted and put the 10 men to bed. But it was an appalling, let's not put any sort of light coating on it. It was an appalling display from Liverpool in that time period between going a goal up, looking slightly threatening for a couple of minutes, and then that long spell where they got themselves back into it with 10 men, looking always the more likely to score. And here's the thing, Jan, when that board went up with 11 minutes, I've seen a lot of Geordie crying since. Now, as you said rightly to me before the mics went live, a lot of these Geordies we see crying are online Geordies, like online Liverpool fans. They're some of the worst humans. So let's not say it's across the board, but a lot of complaining about the 11 minutes. Where did they come from? Well, you can easily account for them. But when the board went up, there were fans cheering across St. James's Park. I'm sure you heard it, because thinking we can get the winner here and put these on their arse. Because Jan, that's the way it was going, man, wasn't it? We looked dead and buried. We were out for the count. Looked like it was just a matter of time before they were going to get this dramatic late win. I think that's fair to say.
But as I said before, Trev, at the end of the game, nobody mentioned the added on time. That was not something that was spoken about within the ground or even outside. I think everybody kind of went away and thought it was maybe the kind of game that we expected. You almost sense that it was more than just a game of football. There was more at stake. I think a lot of Geordie fans thought with the 11 minutes, it's always this thing in the Trevor, you say when the board goes, you go, we're going to create one more chance, and I thought they were going to create one more chance. But as I said before, I just didn't see the Liverpool winner. It was probably the only football we played in the second half. It was a really nice, neat move. And Dominik Szoboszlai did ever so well to totally open it up for Rio and Gamoa. So, yeah. I mean, it's strange, isn't it? Because you come away, as you do, people are texting and I go, yeah, but just think about it. Liverpool will come away with 3 points from one of the most difficult away games all season. And that'll be one of the most difficult away games for anyone. Not many teams are going to go to St. James's Park. I think against the Big Six last year, they drew 2 and won 4. This is a serious 3 points that we somehow managed to pinch. Really, yeah, we did pinch it, yeah. But it was a big 3 points because, as I said before, not many. And if you look at maybe Arsenal and Manchester City, I'm not convinced that they might be able to withstand what we withstood. I thought Virgil van Dijk was a colossus for that type of a game.
Absolutely. I think Virgil, Dom Szoboszlai, Ali, to an extent, they can all leave the pitch quite content with what they did. Most of the rest of them can't, and that's being very blunt about it. Maybe Hugo Ekitike can count himself among the guys who showed well on the night, but so many of our lads didn't show up. And I mean, the stats show it there. 5 shots by Liverpool all game to Newcastle's 10, which is not really impressive either. 4 of ours on target. Newcastle managed 3 shots on target in the entire game. We had 63% of the ball to their 37 and obviously make twice as many passes as them as a result. 82% of those passes are accurate. We fouled slightly less. We get 1 more yellow card, 3 to their 2, 1 less red, 0 to their 1, and a measly solitary corner for the entire match. It says a lot about the way we played on the night. That's very, very strikingly non-Liverpool style stats. It doesn't really track with what we've seen. And so I wanted to just get your take on this. And by the way, I can see you in the chats. Yeah, we'll get to the signings and the transfer talk. Just bear with us. We've got to have a little bit of shape on this. Is it fair to say, Jan, that the attempts to reshape this team and the playing style, and you'd have gotten a beautiful sort of bird's eye view of it there now on a couple of occasions, being live in the stadium, that it's definitely having teething troubles. We are no longer funneling everything through Mo Salah. I think we mentioned this in the last show, but we're now trying to funnel everything through Florian Wirtz, and it's not Florian Wirtz's fault, but it seems to be stifling a lot of our creativity in a strange way. I'm looking at Kirkes and I'm thinking, go on, lad, do the player of the year, left back of the year thing. Get yourself down that flank, up and down that flank. Not so much. So it seems like, I've no doubt it will click, but it seems like Arne is still to find out how. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but we're seeing the same thing with our eyes, Trevor. So even regardless of what Arne Slot thinks, we know what we're seeing with our own eyes. And that's definitely a team having teething problems. I don't know whether I've read this right or wrong, but Arne doesn't seem to be overly concerned with the way that we're playing. I'm not suggesting that I'm happy with the fact that we're winning, because there will be issues that he's unhappy with, but he's certainly not letting us know in public. But I am a little bit concerned about the way that we play, and sometimes he can do too much, and it is a complete change almost, isn't it? I know that it was a bit unfortunate Dom Szoboszlai having to play right back. But as you rightly said, this is not the player I saw at Bournemouth. Overlapping, getting in the opposition half. He's been restricted a little bit. Mo Salah, we're having some issues with Mo Salah, trying to get Mo into the game, trying for him to be effective, although he got himself an assist for the winning goal. So, and also this sort of link-up play that we were looking forward to between Florian Wirtz and whoever was going to be our number 9, and for the time being, it's Ekitike. I think Ekitike is doing his bit, running into space and creating space and wanting to play, whereas Florian Wirtz is just finding everything a little quick at the moment. I just think that everything is happening a little bit too quick for him at the moment. I'm sure with his ability, not just technically, but also in terms of his vision. He will get that at some stage, but so far he's been pretty ineffective.
Yeah, and it just feels, doesn't it, like we might be trying to force it, and maybe that's exactly how we have to do it, is to force it until it works, and there will be a level of adaptation. Now, I know you've spoken about this in the past. You're a big unit of a human, able to handle yourself physically, and that would have helped massively in the move when you came across to Liverpool. But a lot of people have talked about the passing range, and I've had a lot of conversations with people who know that I work with you, and wondering about Wirtz as a kind of a midfield creator as well, and making, talking about comparisons and stuff. Would you have liked to play with him? All those questions. But the fact is, he is a comparatively frail human when you look at some of the bodies around him there. And it is going to take time for him to understand how to use his body to protect the ball in this extra level of physicality that the Premier League provides. I don't think it's a cliche, Jan, is it, to say that is really a thing? It's not Premier League propaganda, that, is it?
I'm sure I've told you this story, Trevor. A director of football at a Premier League club last season went to watch Borussia Dortmund play Barcelona in a Champions League game. And I spoke to him 3 days after. And I said, what was it like? He said it was like a veterans game compared to the Premier League. That's what he said. And that was Dortmund playing Barcelona. He said, in terms of everything, in terms of physicality, in terms of intensity, in terms of tempo, he said it was like a veterans game. And that's the difference. So when Florian Wirtz, and people got their own opinions about this, who the best passes ever been played at Liverpool. But if you have 2 or 3 at mind, he is different to all of them. You could never compare him to the likes of Alonso, because he's a totally different passer of a ball, hasn't he? He heavily relies on getting close to the opposition, getting in between the opposition, playing inside areas. And his passing isn't necessarily 50-yard, open up the pitch. His passing is 15, 20 yards, opening up and creating chances. So he can't take away that thing he has where he gets close to the opposition, where he rides a challenge, gets on the other side and slides the ball in. That's his strength, isn't it? So it's no good. So the type of passer I was, when I struggled with the physicality or whatever of the game is, I could take a step back, and I didn't have to. But he has to get in there, And when the passing is not working, when the playing inside area is not working, he also has to get himself in the penalty box, because he's also a goal scorer. His stats proves to us he's a goal scorer. So he has to play in really tight areas. He has to play in those areas in the Premier League that are the tightest in any league in the world. It's where it happens at the quickest, and it's where it's the most physical, isn't it? So it's going to take him a little while. There's no doubt about that. There's been, and again at Newcastle, there was 4 or 5 incidents, isn't it, where he's just having a breather to play the pass, bang, But having said that, he's also played against 2 of the worst teams to play against, hasn't he? Bournemouth with their pressing, and Newcastle and their midfield bouncers that just runs around and upsets everybody. And when you touch them, that was the one thing that pissed me off, Trevor, the other night. Virgil van Dijk, when he gets taken down for the red card, he tries to get up straight away, doesn't he? Chiesa came on and he was taken down. He tried to get up straight away. And the big, strong Newcastle boys are rolling around. I mean, thinking, all right, play, fine. You want to play the game? Go back to Wimbledon. They played the game, yeah, but they never rolled around. They got up, took the game, I was looking at Newcastle players and thinking, come on, you want to play the tough guys, but it goes both ways. When somebody touches you, get up, man. So that, to be fair, also pissed me off a little bit about the game.
I think it's fair, and a lot of people were looking at it, and trying to understand where these stories were coming from. That Simon Hooper was preferring Liverpool. I mean, you have to be a little bit one-eyed to think that was anything like reality. But fair play. You're going to get these humans out there saying daft things. I think the statistics would give the lie to that. There's been endless commentary, and I'm sure you've talked it to death. So I just want to focus on one or two things from the Newcastle game, because it was interesting just for me to see what you made of that Vert situation and to get your take on it. And there's been an excessive amount of hype around a young lad in the shape of Rio and Gamoa. And yet I feel, Jan, like it's probably important that we spend a couple of minutes on it here as well, because it is it's not unprecedented, but it's very unusual to see someone coming on and being so self-possessed. And I think the thing that impressed me most was the nature of that finish. Now, a fantastic goal. You've already alluded to it. A goal fit to win any game, especially a game that had all that niggle. It was great. We did rob it. We robbed those 3 points. There's no two ways about it. We probably didn't even deserve one. Kind of makes it better in many ways. But that goal, the execution of it from a kid, with all the time in the world, watching that dummy from Dom Szoboszlai, watching that ball, how it feels when you're in front of goal like that in the ball. I don't care how quick it is in real life. That ball is moving very slowly. You have all the time in the world to think about how you could fuck it up. And man, the confidence with which he strikes it, that's got to be a really good sign, doesn't it, about him and his levels of self-possession, that you'd be really optimistic about giving him plenty of minutes on the back of these showings that we've seen so far.
So let's start with the goal. I think the great thing about the goal is that he thought he was going to score.
Yeah.
And so did I. I also thought he was going to score. Now, I can easily name you 5 Liverpool strikers in the last 20 years. If they would have had that chance, I would have gone 50-50. Yeah? I never felt like that Monday night. I felt the kid was going to score, and so did he. I think he almost felt that what he did in terms of putting the ball into the back is the most natural thing in the world. What happened after wasn't the most natural thing in the world, was it? Realising you scored the win in a game and running over and celebrating all. That wasn't. But I think that footballing bit, because that's what it's about at the end, is that footballing bit that he did, which was to put it into the net without giving the goalkeeper a chance. I think he thought, and that's what you think if you're a good player, Trevor, and you go, no, this is what I do. I put it into the back of the net. The one thing that surprised me, Trevor, was the fact that we put him on.
Yeah.
We got the 11 minutes of added on time. We're getting battered. We can't win a physical battle. And we put Harvey Elliott and Rio. I went, where's Endo? This is not what I expected. So I think, for me, that's the biggest surprise, is that we actually put him on, into that environment. Quite incredible. So, yeah, I mean, those couple of minutes that he had, it'll be a long time before he forgets about that. Like the whole intensity. He's been watching that. Sometimes you sit on the bench and you're the substitute and you go, put me on. Can't wait to get in there. I don't know whether he would have felt like that. I don't know whether he would have sat on the bench and gone, go on, Gaffer, stick me on. I think he might have thought, bloody hell, this is brutal. Maybe this is not my game. We'll wait for another one, isn't it? But fair dues to Arne Slot, and I'm not going to sit here and say tactical genius. It was just one of those substitutions that came off, wasn't it? And enabled us to have a little bit of a good play down the one side, and then the square pass across in it. But yeah, as I said before, he thought he was going to score. I thought he was going to score, and I always think that's a good. We got a certain amount of belief in a player. You can't beat that. And also, when you don't have belief in a player, that player knows, doesn't he? Well, this kid doesn't have that, does he? He goes, I can do that all the time. You give me 100 chances like that in the Premier League, I'll score 99. I think that's how he feels.
That is really heartening, and it's always interesting to hear a player perspective coming from you as well. Like, you touched on something there that I just want to bounce off real quick before we do move on, because we have a lot to cover today, and that was the inspired substitution versus the criticism, I think, for the earlier substitution. This is 2 games in a row now, if not 3, where we've been looking at Arne and going, what are you doing there, lad, with the substitutions? And then, you know, you have this inspired one on both occasions. You would have, I think, got pretty decent odds that Arne Slot would put on a late substitute in the form of Chiesa, who would score a late winner, and a late substitute in the form of Rio Ngamoa, and he would score a late winner in back-to-back fixtures to open the Premier League. I mean, I ain't writing that one. I'm not taking those odds. I don't care what they are, because they're going to be too big. I don't want to suggest anything here around luck or anything like that, but I suppose you have to applaud it, don't you? For all we might have been raising our eyebrows at some of the earlier changes, maybe they're also a factor of him still not having the settled squad that he wants, still not having the depth of squad that he wants. We can't underestimate the Alexis McAllister thing, and it's ongoing. We were told, you know, his missus was having a kid. No, he's just not right. And he hasn't been right for a long time, Jan. So Arne is juggling issues. How have you assessed his contribution to the start of the season? Do you find yourself critical? I think there was a few people who were.
Yeah, I think a little. Let's just deal with the substitution in the 2 games, Trevor. It's very Klopp-like, isn't it? You know, it's almost going back to Jurgen Klopp, you know, and needing help from the bench in the last 15 minutes to try and win the game. We never had to do that last year. You know, if you look back last year, our substitution were meant to, they came on to shore up the game, and we were never looking for any drama to win games. But this year it's been different, and we got away with it on 2 occasions. So maybe he is capable of that. The only thing I will say is that, and it was the first thing I mentioned in Coventry on Monday night, is the difference in the bench, even Newcastle's bench compared to ours. It's a lot stronger. But there's absolutely no doubt that Arne Slot would have felt comfortable with the amount of players that we're bringing in. He would have gone, no, we can cope. He did a similar thing, I think, with Feyenoord when he went in, and then he brought 8 new players in. I think that someone won the league. So I think he's pretty comfortable with the amount of players that we're bringing, and he's pretty comfortable that he can work them into the way that we want to play. But so far, it's not working, and he has to accept that he's part of that problem. You know, I was thinking Monday night, because of the type of game and where we were going, I was thinking Robertson. You know, I was thinking Robertson goes left back here for a bit of experience. If we're not looking for our fullback to bomb on anyway, Robbo can do a job. I'm not suggesting it would have been any different. I'm just trying to think what I thought before the game. And also, I have to be honest, I'm looking at Florian Wirtz and I'm thinking, had everybody been available, i.e. a fit right back and McAllister, would he have played? It wouldn't have surprised me if he'd have gone with McGavin, Birch, McAllister and Szoboszlai as his 3, because of the type of a game. Because sometimes you also have to look after the player, don't you? You have to think, well, Florian Wirtz is struggling to be himself in terms of how he plays, isn't it? So maybe I can look after him. But we will never know that. You can ask him 100 times, and of course he'll never give you an answer.
There is another one that plays into the next game, so we might as well touch on it now. You mentioned Dom Szoboszlai at right back, outrageously positive display. Couple of big interceptions, a tackle pretty much in the 6-yard box, which prevented a goal. A couple of other big interceptions, nodded one away at the back post. Got a little flick onto something to stop a goalward bound shot as well. And he just constant effort and used the ball very well, and then moved into midfield later on and did the same. I was watching him and I was thinking, Jesus, could we be onto something here? Because in a week where we've discovered that Trent is not exactly pulling up trees at Real, and that, you know, like an awful lot of us thought would happen, Carvajal has come back, he's fit, he's going to play. And there's stories going around whether it's just mischief making or not, that Trent isn't that popular. He's thought of as cold and detached and blah, blah, blah. You wonder, don't you, about the idea of the adaptation of a player to a position. Because what are we going to do if everybody is fit? If we do get Alexis Mack back and he's doing well and he's not, like, I'm a little bit worried about that injury situation. But let's just go positive. What do you do? Is there a world, Jan, where someone could adapt to a position like that to really benefit a team? You know how Trent used to be able to quarterback games from that position? Is there a world where Dom is this strutting, high energy right back who kind of has that, you know, creative role to add to the team as well? Or do you think that's just fanciful?
Yeah, I think that's a little fanciful. I don't see anything wrong with him playing right back with the qualities that he had, but he is an all-action footballer, isn't he? You know, and I always think that most great passers are calm footballers, aren't they? Trent was a calm footballer. Xabi Alonso was a calm footballer. Szoboszlai isn't necessarily a calm footballer. You know, his strength, his real strength, is that he can play at a tempo where most others can't, and he can play at that tempo for 100 minutes. You know, and that's his strength, isn't it? Whereas most people go, "Wow, I've had enough now." The only thing I'm thinking, Trevor, for Sunday against Arsenal, does she play as right back again? Because I don't know what's changed with Conor Bradley and Joe Gomez. I know they've had a few more training days and whatever, but would that be enough to convince Arne Slot? Because all I'm ever hearing is they need minutes. Yeah, they need minutes. Well, minutes is games, isn't it? So I don't know whether anything has changed, you know, apart from maybe having another 4 training sessions during the week. So I may be thinking, but of course it depends a little bit on how he reads Arsenal and what Arsenal are deciding to do on the left. Whether that's Martinelli with his pace, that might have an influence on how Arne Slot might want to set up.
Yeah, you kind of wouldn't be surprised to see him go with someone that he can rely on. He seemed to be that manager last season, didn't he? He had his 11 and he liked to play his 11 more or less, certainly 10 of them. Klopp had periods like that as well, of course, most managers do. But you wouldn't be surprised to see him say, listen, Swiss Army knife, just go and do the thing there for me for this next game because, like you say, horses for courses. And I don't know. We'll talk about Conor Bradley in the later section because we could spend all night on this one match and the stuff that arose from it. For now, we have potential developments. Let's put it this way. And I want to show you a tweet that has come out from Keith Downey, who's a Newcastle-based journalist for Sky Sports. And he has an exclusive here, Jan, that we should just read through. Newcastle have agreed a fee with Stuttgart to sign striker Nick Woltemade. And until today, unless I'm mistaken, you probably saw the same as I did, there was talk about Nicholas Jackson, a different Nick altogether, and Newcastle, and maybe that could still happen. Maybe it's going to be 2. They have agreed a package of £60.5 million plus 4.5 million in add-ons. Apparently, that rounds up to, would you believe, 80 or something like 85 million euros or something like that. It's quite a lot. This has been confirmed with both Newcastle sources and sources in Germany. According to Downey, the German international will travel to the northeast for a medical tomorrow. Jesus Christ, Jan, they finally got one over the line after a lot of the summer spent being completely inept. This looks like it's close.
Well, they've certainly been inept in terms of trying to find a replacement for either Callum Wilson or for Alexander Isak. I think they've done quite well with some of the other business that they've done. But yeah, this looks like a breakthrough. What will that mean? I don't know. I mean, there was always a feeling that, you know, people said Newcastle would have to find 2 strikers before they were prepared to sell. Maybe they got a bit more faith in the boy that came on the other night and scored, Musula. Although last week he was on his way to Leverkusen, so I don't quite know what the thinking is behind that one. But of course, this can only be good news because nobody's happy with this situation, are they? And I think maybe Eddie Howe's played a big part in this, where he's gone, listen, let's think about Newcastle. Yeah, let's bury this thing about Alexander Isak. He wants to go, let him go. As long as we get what we want and we can get a striker or 2 in, and we'll just move on because it's just unsatisfactory, isn't it?
Yeah, it must be. I think that's a really good shout. Eddie's got a bit of stick because of the old nepotism scenario going on there at the club. My take on it is that if they had someone who had a little bit more cachet, perhaps this wouldn't be quite the problem it seems to be. To get those big name strikers, I agree with you. Some of the other business has been good. But getting the big strikers in, you're going to require that added, like I say, little bit of pulling power. And I'm not sure that manager particularly has that. Regardless, if they have gotten one done, you asked me a question before we went live. Do you think one would be enough? Would this Voltemade guy, he was very highly rated and was being linked with everyone from Bayern to you name it. Do you think that would be enough for them? Because they were making a lot of sounds, like you say, about needing to replace both Isak and Wilson. And this is assuming the Isak thing now goes through on the back of a big amount of money out. Would that be enough to trigger it, do you think, that to finally get this Isak thing moving?
I definitely think it will help. The next hurdle to get over is the fee, isn't it? I think if Newcastle had got 2 players in, I think we'd have got him for the fee that we were comfortable with. The fact that they've only got 1 in might just make the price for Isak a little bit, maybe another 10 or 15 million on top. But what this might allow Newcastle to do, let's say they sold Isak to Liverpool, they would have to buy a replacement. Now they bought they bought another striker in, but also think now that it would be okay for them now to go out in the loan market and maybe loan somebody for 12 months. I don't think they could have done that without buying somebody permanent. But I think now they can go, well, okay, we got Nick Voltemade in, and now we can go and maybe take somebody on loan for 12 months. And they would get away with it that way, as long as whoever that loan player is a big enough name to satisfy people, isn't it? But I just think that it appears that everybody's ready to do that now, isn't it? Look at the silence from the Newcastle owners and the owner group since Monday night. We've heard nothing, isn't it? They've kind of gone back and gone, okay, we'll leave it to the people up at Newcastle to get this deal done, isn't it? Let's just get it done, and we need to get somebody in. I was amazed at, I was going to say desperation, but they were desperate, weren't they? Looking at paying 55, 60 million for Jurgen Strand Larsen. That's a big fee, isn't it? I even think it's a big fee for the boy here, isn't it? But there is a certain amount of desperation involved in this.
There was similarly massive money being mentioned for Nicholas Jackson, and I think the reason why people thought that might be done, and that was the story earlier today, the reason people thought that might be done on the back of Strand Larsen, I think that deal falling apart at the last minute, like so many of them have, people thought it would happen because Jackson himself would be keen on the move. I guess there could be a world, Jan, God knows they're not short of a few spare pounds, where maybe Jackson and Voltemade come in. That's, I guess, possible, right?
Yeah, it is possible. I mean, I think they would try everything to get into, but they can also maybe just about live with if it's only one. As I said before, we mentioned the boy Wasula who came on, and you also sense that there's some of the wide attackers that they have who can potentially play through the middle. But it's kind of they've kind of created some of this themselves, haven't they? So if they have to make short-term solutions, that's their problem, isn't it?
It sure is. Imagine a world where we have a tough at the top headache, and finally, after all the palaver, Alexander Isak does arrive at Anfield. It's fair to say, isn't it, that regardless of, I don't know if you've ever been in a position where you were training solo, rehabbing an injury or something like that, it's fair to say that it's nowhere near the same, is it? And I think people would want to cool their jets, because even if we do get the Alexander Isak deal over the line, it's likely to be a good few weeks before we see him, isn't it, on a regular basis, certainly starting.
Yeah, I mean, what will help him is the couple of international games he's been picked for Sweden, where you can see him, maybe getting half an hour in the first game and maybe 45 minutes in the second game. So that would be a big help. But yeah, it is every chance that we're going to be looking towards the back end of September before. And it's also important, Trevor, because this is obviously going to be a British record. It's also important that you show the player to the public when he's ready, isn't it? You know, and there's no need for us to get desperate and go, we need you. You know, we're okay. We've got other players, so we'll take our time. And when you're ready, bang. Because even for Alexander Isak, you know, he still has to announce himself to the Liverpool crowd. Yes, I understand what he's done at previous club and what he's done at Newcastle and Sweden. But, you know, you want to see that in your shirt, isn't it? So he'll equally be under big pressure. So I think Arne Slot will be quite sensible and go, now he's ready, and now we'll unleash him.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the idea that it might be difficult for him, even big record fee and all as he is, to get into the team because of how Ekitike is doing. And, you know, it is fair to say that he's made a really very good impression. Irrespective of whether you think he's been really good in the games, and I think it's hard to argue that he's been anything but good in the games. His hold-up play is decent. His movement is good. I like his mentality. There was at one point there, I think he was coming off the field. He was getting pushed and shoved around by all the fake hard men in the Newcastle midfield, including Guimaraes and others. And he's just shrugging it off. He seems to have a brilliant mentality. He was just sneering at them. He's like, I've done my job. You know, I'm really liking the cut of his jib, and I have to say, I think he's made a great start.
So I spoke to our colleagues from French TV, Canal Plus, before the game on Monday, and their co-commentator is a ex-Liverpool player, Bruno Giroud. And I just said, what do you make? He said, you know what, Jan, do you know what his biggest strength is? He's a generous striker, he said. You know, and I understand fully what he means, which means he isn't selfish. He's a generous striker. He runs away in the name of the team. You know, he does work for the team. It's not important for him to finish the season with 30 goals. It's important for him, for the team to do well because of his work. So I kind of like that explanation. He's a generous striker, you know, and he plays like that. I have to say he plays like a very generous striker, because you get other strikers, don't you, who want it all, you know. They want it all. They want to take corners and penalties and free kicks, and they want to score all the goals, and they want to celebrate when they score. He's a generous striker, and I like that description.
That's lovely. That's a nice bit of inside info as well from someone who's watched him closely. We will keep going. People don't want us to move away from the transfer stuff ever, but there's a big story. There's a big story out there, and that's the Champions League draw, which has been made, and I wouldn't mind getting your take on it. There's only so much we can say about this, of course, but interesting to hear it. The Champions League draw, we'll look at it on the official website here. Confirmed Liverpool's Champions League phase opponents. They have discovered their 8 opponents in the second season's league phase of the Champions League. And bloody hell, Jan, look at this. It's only Real Madrid. It's only Trent returning. We've got Inter, Atletico, Eintracht Frankfurt, PSV, Marseille, Karabakh, and Galatasaray. Now, of those, we have home games against Real Madrid. Already suggested that's going to be tasty. Home game against Atletico, against PSV, and Karabakh. And we go away on the road to Milan to play Inter, to Frankfurt to play Eintracht Frankfurt, and Marseille and Galatasaray as well. It's a hell of a bundle of fixtures. I think it's fair to say, Jan, that is there's some tasty ones there, and it's not an easy task by any means.
No, it's not. There's some good names in there. Absolutely no doubt about that. I mean, obviously the top 3, Real Madrid, Inter, let's not forget Inter. I know they lost 5-0, but nevertheless, they were in the Champions League final last year. And Atletico Madrid, which is basically the same as playing Newcastle. They're playing a very similar way. Off the rest, I'm delighted that we don't have to go to Azerbaijan to play Karabakh. Good job, that's at Anfield. Off those away games, Inter will be tough. I love the San Siro. It's a great atmosphere. It's a great football stadium to go to. And Galatasaray will have his own moments because of, you know, the way that the Turkish football supporters support their team. So that'll be a great experience for the boys. But I don't see too much rocky waters here, Trevor. We did it last year with Real Madrid. I feel we'll be more than good enough to do the same thing again. Inter away will be tricky. Frankfurt is the great thing with German teams, Trevor, they all play the same way. You know, it's open games. You're going to get plenty of chances. So what we're looking at here, 6-7 wins, probably 6 wins and 2 draws, or maybe 7 wins and a draw will be okay. Because this year, Trevor, more important than last year, to do well in the group stages, because now there is some benefits for winning the group, or finishing near the top as the draw progresses, isn't it? So we'll be flat out. We'll be looking forward to them. There's some great names. There's 1 or 2 teams who might be able to cause us some problems, and then there's some nice places to visit.
There are some nice places to visit, and you're right. Like there's a lovely sort of ring to some of these games. Liverpool Real, Liverpool Inter, Liverpool Atletico. These are great games. PSV. There's Liverpool Marseille. Even these are all great games to look forward to. Proper European ties. I love your confidence there, man. You were exactly the same this time last year, to be fair to you. Your rationale was, and this is going into season 1 with Arne, it was, we should be able to do these. We should walk away. And I think something similar you were predicting. Is there a particular reason why you have that air of confidence around these European fixtures? I'm just trying to think if this was a similarly weighted list of Premier League fixtures, would you have the same optimism? Is it something about this competition, the way that we set up in it, or where is that sense of calm coming from?
So generally, I think most people would say that the Premier League is the strongest league in the world. So the 6 English teams in the Premier League this year. But if you give these fixtures to Newcastle or to Tottenham, they will struggle. Although they're Premier League teams, they would struggle because they don't have what we have, which is that European experience. And I don't think anyone else, and I know that Chelsea, Manchester City, and Manchester United have also won the Champions League in the last 15 years or whatever. But I still don't quite feel they have what we have. I know that some of our fans walk around and call Liverpool European royalty, whatever you're thinking, but I just think that it's like a competition we feel so at home in. We travel so well. We travel so well with our fans. Our fans are used to this, isn't it? So I just can't. I mean, obviously the home games are what they are, but the away games are in many ways 4 great away games. Milan is a great city and it's a great football ground. Frankfurt is a great German city and a great stadium, with big crowds. Marseille is, whoa, that's off the scale, isn't it, in terms of the atmosphere? And there'll be 50,000 people and it's great. And Galatasaray would be the same, isn't it? And that might frighten even other Premier League teams in it. But we just know how to do this, and I just think that's massive. We know how to do this. And I do think that there's only very few teams in Europe where you can have that kind of confidence that almost regardless of what you throw at us, we'll go.
Yeah, it's a great shout. And like any squad that has Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah swaggering about in it with the record of having won the bloody thing and been to so many finals, I think you're right. I think it's a well-earned calm. I just wanted you to spell it out for our listeners because sometimes they need to hear reassuring things from you, sir. We will move on, I think, to the last section of the show now because there's lots we can talk about here, and that is the Arsenal game. And so have a look at the preview side of things and see what we think is coming up. Before we do, perhaps might be no harm to just look at Arsenal's most recent results and just remind people, of course there's only 2, but just remind people of what happened there. And we can see the results most recently are the 5-0 win over Leeds and the opening day result where they beat United away at Old Trafford. If we go to the most recent of those games, the Arsenal win over Leeds, where Arsenal were at home, we see a pretty dominant performance, 18-3 shots, nearly 70% of the ball, some 600 passes, all very accurate, 91% pass rate. And it's, pretty impressive. The lineup that day, Arsenal went with Raya, Timber and Calafiori with Saliba and Gabriel. Odegaard, Zubamendi and Rice is their preferred midfield, with Saka, Madueke and Gyökeres up top. Now, that's where I wouldn't mind starting with you in terms of getting your take on the business that Arsenal have done. And we know that old checkbook man himself has gone out and fired another few bob at the wall to get Eberechi Eze in and get that deal over the line. Not cheap by any means, but a good squad addition. I think you'll agree. Like, it's just a quality footballer and it makes them better, which is not good for us. When you look at them and you look at the way they line up, and it's probably too early to make any calls on Gyökeres or even Zubamendi, but what's your early thinking about how they will shape up as a force this season?
So there's a feeling that they'll come to Anfield on Sunday without some of their key players. Saka is injured, Kai Havertz is injured, Martin Odegaard might be injured, Ben White could be missing. But you do feel that with Madueke coming in, Subimendi coming in, Eberechi Eze coming in, that they'll be able to cope. So I think that's Arsenal's biggest threat this year, is whereas last year they lost important players and they couldn't quite cope. They didn't have the replacements. So I was at Arsenal's first game against Manchester United where they won 1-0. They won 1-0 because of a goalkeeping error. Arsenal didn't play particularly well. United did, to be fair. So I'm not overly impressed with Arsenal. I watched the game against Leeds. They had 5 efforts on target. They all went in. 2 goals from corners, a penalty. I don't quite know what to make of Arsenal. One thing we do know is that they're physically strong. They're well organised. They're very, very good at set pieces in both penalty areas, attacking and defending. And of course, they got some quality footballers that I semi-think that the manager is holding back a little. You know, I'm not quite sure they get everything that they could for that squad because of the way that Arteta wants to do things. But there's absolutely no doubt that this on Sunday is a dangerous game. There's no doubt whatsoever.
And do you think it behooves Liverpool to maybe prioritise attack? The reason I ask that is we were reliant on Virgil van Dijk having one of his best games in years there in the recent robbed victory over Newcastle. We are always heavily reliant on Ali. We're looking at a guy in our other centre half who seems at the moment to not be quite with us. I'm trying to be kind here, but he had another absolute nightmare of a game, I thought, in terms of just concentration and being on the job the way he should be. Like, Ibu Konate is a wonderful footballer, but if his head has been turned or if he's considering interest from other clubs or whatever the reason is, he's certainly not on it at the moment. Joe Gomez didn't feature there in the most recent game when he could have easily featured during that game, you would have thought, at some point, which would suggest that he's not ready to start either, even if it was to step in for Ibu and maybe give him a chance to reset. I don't know what you made of Kirkes over the course of the game, but I think he had a couple of difficult spells. It certainly didn't look too impressive when he was facing the wrong way as we conceded a goal and he's getting climbed on. Now, everyone understands momentum, so we might cut him some slack there. And then on the far side, we've got Frimpong injured. We've got Bradley not fit to start games yet. And we've got Dom Szoboszlai sort of being a makeshift right back for us. I guess what I'm getting at is, are we a little bit fragile there, man? Especially given that Alexis McAllister is not a given and he is, ironically, our toughest midfielder?
Yeah, I think we are a little bit fragile. And I think that's been proven in the 2 games. We're not trying to make up a story that we're fragile. We've seen that we're fragile and we've been fragile in the games. And although our bench already has played a great part in recovering late on in games, our bench is also fragile. So it is a problem. I think the fact that Saka is out injured will probably help Kirkes. But if it's Madueke who plays on that side, he's also a very direct footballer with a lot of pace. But this is kind of what you expect of, isn't it? I mean, right now, Arsenal are top way third. It won't be like that when we kick off on Saturday, on Sunday, sorry, because I guess Spurs might get some points when they play Bournemouth or whatever. But these two, Trevor, I said it all last year, will finish first and second. These two, I'm going to tell you again, will finish first and second again. So expect a tough game.
Okay, I really want to get into that with you just briefly. I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but it would be remiss of me not to ask you why City aren't in that conversation with you, with us. We saw they had a very disappointing result at the weekend, but these things can happen. Is there something about City that you're seeing that suggests to you that they won't have that ability to mount a challenge over time? Because I know you and I were both thinking, Jesus, like Haaland could be really scary this season. That's a massive weapon for them. Maybe Rodri gets his form back. They've made some really good signings. If they can sort of assimilate them, that seems to be the issue.
So we all got carried away when they went to Wolves and won 4-0. And one or two of their new signings did ever so well. And then the next game is a proper Premier League game, yeah. It's a proper Premier League game against Spurs, who tactically astute manager, physically strong, ideally set up to play on the counter-attack away from home. And I just thought that Spurs controlled the game to the extent that Manchester City have lost in the past. I think they've lost 5 home games since 2021 in the Premier League. But, teams have won at the Etihad and you've gone, yeah, they got away with that. They got lucky. City had 48,000 shots on goal and whatever, you know what I mean? I didn't see that on Saturday. And I'm looking at the end of the game, they're 2-0 down against Spurs, and I'm looking what his response is. The players he's got on the pitch, Rico Lewis right back, Nathan Ake left back, John Stones, Ruben Dias, Rodri, who need at least another 10 games, Phil Foden, who looks finished to me, what's his name, Reinders, who came in and did ever so well against Wolves. Again, I'm not 100% convinced that he is what people make him out to be. Phil Foden, who, I don't know what's happened to Phil Foden. I feel sorry for players when things like that. Phil Foden won PFA Player of the Year, not last season, but the season before. And you look at it now, you can only feel sorry for him. I just don't see the quality, Trevor. I don't see. Bernardo Silva was on the pitch. I mean, Bernardo Silva should not be at Manchester City anymore, The guy's done at that level. So I just don't see it. People tell me, and I go, I just don't see it. I don't see that team where you go, Liverpool right back, Bradley Frimpong, Arsenal right back, Ben White, Timber, centre halves. I can see what Liverpool and Arsenal have got. I can't see what City have got. Yeah, they've got a mixture of some potentially great players. They've got a mixture of some players who used to be great players, and then they've got a mixture of players who are not good enough to play in a team that want to compete for the Premier League. So I'm just wondering, Trevor, whether their biggest problem is their manager now. Pep Guardiola was kind of in charge of football for 20 years. He decided how we play. Everybody spoke about Pep Guardiola football, and I just wonder whether Pep Guardiola is. There's other managers now, and there's other ideas, and there's so many young, fearless managers who play how they want to play, isn't it? And I just wonder whether it's all too much, because one thing he doesn't want to do, when so many managers want to, they're quite happy to play these 100-mile-an-hour wild open games. Yeah, Pep Guardiola can't handle that, can he? He wants to be in control of everything, And I just wonder whether that has gone a little bit because of the way that the opposition play. They're not going to allow you. Yeah, they're going to allow you plenty of opportunities to counter-attack them, but they're not going to allow you to have your own way. So, and I know this is long, but everybody thought that Thomas Frank would go with 3 centre-halves against Manchester City, because that's what he did when he played PSG, sorry. And also that's what he did a lot of times last year with Brentford when they played the bigger teams. I know exactly what he did. He went, their weakness is up there. We're getting in their half. We're squeezing them. We're pressurising them all over the pitch. That's the way to unsettle them. 5 years ago, that was suicide, wasn't it? You press them, they play through you, you're done. Now you want to get in amongst them. And there'll be plenty of teams, the likes of Bournemouth or whatever. Everton at home will give them plenty of problems. I just can't see it, Trevor. I think they're too easy to play against.
Is it a thing that can happen? I think we've seen it maybe with Jose Mourinho, who's still really a very, very good manager.
Mm-hmm.
But is it a thing that can happen, do you think, to the most elite of managers, like it happens with the most elite players, that it's that phrase, was, I think it might have been Gary Neville who coined it recently, like that you leave the football before the football leaves you, that kind of idea. Is there a stage that you can hit as an elite manager where you go, shit, there's actually a few people who are a couple of steps ahead of me now, or they're thinking about the game differently, and maybe it is at a stage too late in your 50s to do that evolution? I don't know. What do you think?
I think his biggest problem is he doesn't want to play like they play. He wants to play the way he wants to play. So when he retires, people go, that man played his football and he was a gift to football, yeah? And he has been a gift to football in terms of the way he was part of transforming the way that the game was played, isn't it? But I just think he's so stubborn, like Jose Mourinho, stubborn, and go, this is how we play. And we will fight for the right to play the way that we want to play. And everybody else goes, good luck with it. We've got other plans. We've got different plans. We don't. There's more and more managers who go, we don't need the ball to play. We're comfortable without the ball. We know what to do without the ball. But when we get it, we know what to do, And there's more and more of them. Whereas Pep cannot play without the ball. He has to have the ball. He has to be in control, The others go, you can fucking have it. Sorry for swearing. But
that's man. We actually fully embrace that. I find that very interesting. I think it's quite astute. Do you think there's anyone who could sneak in then to maybe gazump City as a more likely person to rattle the hopeful top two that is Liverpool and Arsenal? Is there another? Do Chelsea have it in them? Is there anyone else who could possibly make a bit of a play for it?
Yeah, I do like Chelsea. I think they've got some really good players, and so they should. If you consider the amount of players they bought over the last few years, they should have good players, and they have got some good players. There is certain aspects of the game that still worries me when I watch them. I worry about their goalkeeper. I'm not convinced that they're strong enough in the centre-half areas. But again, after the first game of the season where they drew with Crystal Palace and everybody went, wow, I went, oh, calm down. These are good players, and they showed that when they went to West Ham and won 5-1. So I think Chelsea, I've got a chance, but I can't see Chelsea being able to get 85 plus points. And that's what it's going to take to win the title. And I think that's going to be Chelsea's biggest problem in the end, that they won't get to those numbers. Newcastle and Aston Villa, I just think that Newcastle will find it so difficult with the Champions League, with the 8 games in the Champions League. And I don't know what's going on in Villa. They're obviously under real pressure because of PSR had to sell Jacob Ramsey last week, so they can't really bring anyone out. Wouldn't surprise me if they bring in 1 or 2 on loan before the window closes. Then we got Spurs. I don't think Spurs will be far away, considering that they finished 17th last year. It's not unthinkable that they finish in the top 6. And then of course we got Manchester United, who have invested in some attacking players who look really good at their previous club. And now they're going to Manchester United, and now they look like they can't play football. So I don't know what to say about that, other than the next thing that might happen there is a change of a manager. And we know sometimes what can happen when there's a change of a manager, because they do have 1 or 2 really good players in it. But for me, Liverpool, Arsenal and Chelsea, I just don't quite think Chelsea are strong enough to go toe-to-toe with Liverpool and Arsenal to the end.
You know who was being touted by someone who will remain nameless on one of the major media platforms today as someone to step in and take over from Amorim at United? Old Dicey.
Oh, Sean Dyche.
Kid you not, Dicey. Wow. Get him in. Wow. Get him in. I mean,
there's another way of playing football, isn't it? We haven't even discussed that yet.
We can only hope, Jan. We can only dream.
Yeah, we can only hope.
So we'll wrap it up. We will get to the usual. We're in the last minute of the show. Let's get from you what you think is going to happen in this big old game against Arsenal at the weekend.
So I think Anfield realises this is a big game. And I think Anfield realises Arsenal is a real threat. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's going to be another wild game. And we're in the mood of conceding goals. But I also think that Anfield might just be able to put Arsenal under some kind of pressure, where one or two of them get a little bit nervy. So I actually think it's going to be a similar thing to what happened at Newcastle, that we win 3-2. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's more late drama. I can see late drama all over this game.
Bloody hell. Bloody hell. Late drama. Just exactly what my constitution does not need. But you know what? If it's a win, brother, I'll take it. So as ever, I just want to say thanks for taking us round the houses. A lot to throw at you today, and you roll with the punches beautifully as ever. So thanks very much for that.
Next week, Trevor, the transfer window is closed and we can talk about football.
May I just say thank fuck? Because it's starting to get on my tits, I'll be honest with you. It's getting silly. And I do a transfer show, so I have had enough. We'll be doing a show, if you're interested in that kind of thing, probably with our matching yellow ties. Maybe I'll wear a nice little yellow off-the-shoulder number to go with my fellow host, and we will be talking about what happens at the death in the transfer window. All you people in the chat, you love it. I know you do, you tarts. We'll talk to you soon about that. From me and from Jan for this show. Until the next one, mind yourselves.